Good day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's Life Sciences lesson. My name is Vedika Maraj, and this lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Cybono Discovery Center. Today, we're going to be doing the topic Human Reproduction, Part 1. So, starting with the human reproduction topic, it is important for us to note how many marks this will be in your final examination paper. And this is as well as your preparatory examination, which you'll be writing in September. So, the human reproduction forms part of paper 1 in your preparatory examination and in your final examination. And it's going to carry 41 marks. Okay, so you'll also see it in your control test, this topic, you'll also see it in the June examination. However, they're not going to carry the same amount of marks, okay? So I just want to refer to you that this is talking about at the end of the year and in your preparatory examination. So basically, it's a large bulk of paper 1. A large portion of paper 1 is human reproduction, and it's actually a lovely topic. Learners enjoy answering questions in this topic. They also enjoy learning about it, as you will see that you are doing right now, and they also score a lot of marks in this topic. So I'm going to take you through to the first part, and today I'm going to be focusing on the female reproductive system, the male reproductive system, puberty, and gametogenesis. And next week we'll be doing menstrual cycle, the hormonal control of the menstrual cycle, and the development of the fetus. And that is basically the human reproduction in a nutshell. So this is actually taken from the ATP, okay, and that is your basically your examination guideline, the guide on exactly how much detail you need to study in each of these subtopics in this big topic called human reproduction. Right, so outlining the human life cycle. This is a very important diagram where I like to start just so that a learner can see where does everything fit in. Okay, what I want us to look at are, you can look at the little block on the side. I want us to think about these 3 terms when I'm explaining this. Okay, and that is meiosis, which is the topic that you just studied now before moving into human reproduction, and then fertilization, and lastly mitosis. Mitosis you should know from grade 10, but you also revise it again when you were taught meiosis. Okay, so in this life cycle, I like to start here with the adults. Right, we have 2 adults here. We have a male and a female. And they are, let's remind ourselves that they are multicellular diploid organisms, okay, or adult. So that means that in all of their somatic cells, their body cells, they have 46 chromosomes, okay? Diploid is 2N, and in a human, this is referring to 46 chromosomes. Now, you should remember this, right, from meiosis, so we're just recapping, going through it quickly. So what's going to happen is that each of these individuals are going to have a process going in their bodies. The process is called meiosis. Okay, let's unpack what that is again. Where does meiosis take place? In males, it takes place in the testes, and in females, it takes place in the ovaries. Okay, and what is actually happening here? This is where we are going to be halving the number of chromosomes, and we are going to be producing gametes. Gametes are sex cells, and gametes are not diploid, they are haploid. Okay, so also from what you know is that, so that's what you understand so far about meiosis, is that we are going to be halving the number of chromosomes. They take place in the testes in the male, they take place in the ovary in the female, and during this process, the meiosis is going to result in 4 haploid cells, which are going to be their gametes. Right, now during basically what's going to happen is that those cells that are going to become gametes in a female, that gamete is called an ovum. Okay, we'll go into the details about how they are produced later on in this lesson. And in males, they are called sperm cells. Okay, so the gametes in females are called ovum. One is an ovum, many are ova, and then in the males it's a sperm cell. So here we spoke about the haploid gametes, we spoke about those 2. Now, what happens during sexual intercourse is that the ovum and the sperm cell, they will come into contact with each other. Okay, we will also go through that later. But what I want you to understand for now is that those organisms, those structures are going to come together, and the nuclei of each one are going to join and they're going to fuse. So we're going to have the haploid nucleus of the ovum fusing with the haploid nucleus of the sperm cell. And that is going to bring about our diploid zygote. So now from having two haploid gametes, we are now going to have one structure which is called a zygote, which is going to be diploid, because the 23 from the one gamete and the 23 from the other gamete is going to make our 46 for our zygote. Now, this zygote is the structure that's going to have to eventually develop into a fetus and later on a baby, right? So this diploid zygote has to go through another process, and that process is called mitosis. Right, it goes through mitosis and development. So what's happening in mitosis? We're having growth, okay? We're having multiplication. It's also a type of cell division, okay? And you know this from grade 10. It's also a type of cell division, but we are not going to have in the end genetically different cells. We are going to have cells that look the same as the original cell. Okay, so this is the one that is responsible for growth and develop, and will then eventually cause the development. Okay, and then that's how we eventually become a fully grown or human being, adult. Okay, and then the process will start again. Right, so that is the human life cycle. Let's move on. Now we're going to look at the reproductive systems, the male reproductive system and the female reproductive system. Right, let's look at the first one. You will see in your examination guideline, it stipulates which structures you need to know from the male reproductive system. Okay. The reason why I've got a front view and a side view here for you is because you really need to know how to label both of them. Because when you're going to get in an examination, you might only get the front view or you'll get the side view. And not just that, you might even only get a part of the front view or a part of the side view. Okay, so it's very important that you understand that any diagram can be given to you in any form. So it's good for you to practice a side view, practice labeling a side view and a front view so that you can be prepared for anything. Okay, so let's look at it. We can look at them together, the front and the side view at the same time. Let's start at the bottom, okay, with the scrotum. Here are we looking at the testes, okay, so the males have a pair of testes which are situated in the scrotum, okay. Then they have an epididymis, okay. Let's go to this one. Here we have the scrotum, right? Here we have the testes. Then so on top of that or above that we have an epididymis. That is going to be leading into the vas deferens, okay. And then from the vas deferens, we're going to have the ejaculatory duct and the urethra. Okay, so the urethra is going to expel the urine, right? And the semen is going to be expelled out of the urethra. We're going to see it a bit later when we go to the next diagram. When I talk about the functions. Here we are just looking at the structures. Then we've got three accessory glands. We've got a seminal vesicle, a prostate gland, and a Cowper's gland. Okay, let's have a look at where they are over here. So we've got the Cowper's gland, that's over here. Okay, we've got the prostate gland, that is the structure over here, and then there's one over here. The Cowper's gland is very small here, you can't really see it very well. That's the reason why I think there's no label line for that one. And then here we have the seminal vesicle. Okay, that is the structure over here, and there's also one this side. And then yeah, so those are the three. Then it's not part of what you need to know, but you should also know it from grade 11 anyway, is that we also have a ureter and a bladder. Okay, so the bladder is the structure here that sits here above, and then it's attached to a ureter. So the ureter is the tube that is connected to the kidney. Okay, so it connects the kidney and the bladder. And then lastly we have the penis. Okay, and that is that structure. The penis is now the structure. It's not actually labeled over here, but we know that it is, well, I'm showing you now that it is the structure. Okay, so these are the structures that you need to know. Make sure you know how to label these diagrams. Now I'm going to go into the functions of the different parts. Let's start at the bottom again with the scrotum. So the scrotum is a skin sac, and it protects the testes and holds the testes outside the body. Okay, testes are held outside the body. It's very important that you know that. And it's kept at a temperature which is 2 degrees Celsius below 37 degrees. So 37 degrees is our normal body temperature, okay, inside. That's our body temperature. So the testes are held outside so that they can be held at 2 degrees Celsius lower than that body temperature. And why does it need to be at that temperature? Because this is the best temperature for the production of sperm. Okay, so everything in our bodies, they work, under specific conditions, and sperm is one of those things that work the best at that temperature. Right, then we go to the testes. They produce sperm cells, and they also produce a hormone called testosterone. Then we have the epididymis, and this is where the sperm cells mature, and they are also stored here. Okay, so they get developed here, and then they are stored here, and they mature. Then we've got the vas, is the part that transports the semen and the urine out of the body. Okay, it expels 2 substances. Then we've got the seminal vesicle, the prostate gland, and the Cowper's gland. These 3 are together called the accessory glands. Okay, and what do you know about glands? They have secretions. Let's have a look at what they secrete and what the function of the secretion is. So they are essential for maturation and motility of sperm. So collectively, the 3 accessory glands are essential for maturation and motility of sperms. They contain nutrients, it's alkaline, and they contain mucus. The nutrients is what provides energy for the movement of the sperm. The alkaline neutralizes the acidic conditions of the vagina. And the mucus is what's important for the mobility of sperm in the female reproductive system. The secretions of the accessory glands together with the sperm constitute the semen. So what's essentially happening over here is that we have the sperm that's produced here in the testes, then it's going to mature in the epididymis, then it's going to travel via the vas deferens, and then the secretions of the accessory glands are going to join these sperm cells, and together it's going to form the semen. Okay. So it's important for us to understand that semen is made up of sperm cells and the fluid that is secreted by the accessory glands. Now, just a note, you must be careful of certain words, okay? Like epididymis also sounds like epidermis, and epidermis is a word that you've learned, right, in grade 10. So just be careful that there are 2 different things, right? Epidermis is it's a layer of tissue, and the epididymis is now the structure that we were talking about. And learners also confuse the urethra and the ureter. Urethra and ureter, okay? Remember I told you ureter is the one that connects the bladder and the kidney. Let's do a quick question. Okay, so here we have an activity and it's asking us to study the diagram of part of the male reproductive system. You see, it is telling us that it's a part of the male reproductive system. So it's not the whole thing. So now you're going to be looking at me like, ma'am, we just did the side view and the front view. Now we are looking at what is this? Okay, so you must be able to identify this structure, and what is it that we see here? What can you notice here from what we actually just did? You notice the testes. You should be noticing the testes, okay? You should be noticing that there's like a scrotum, and there's, an epididymis, and there's a vas deferens, okay? So you should be noticing that. You can see from there that this is actually a and also the clue for you is telling you it's the male reproductive system. So don't start thinking that, this is an ear, or it looks like an ovum, or it looks like a sperm cell. No, they're telling us it's part of the male reproductive system. Right, so what is part A? The testes. Yes, and what is part B? The vas deferens. B is the epididymis. B is the epididymis, and C is the vas deferens. Okay, so that is the one over here that I was showing you in the previous picture. Now they're asking us to describe the process of spermatogenesis in part A. Okay, so we haven't done this one yet. I'm going to quickly skip it, and then we're going to come back to it later after I do that. Okay, it's the one that we're going to do next. During a vasectomy, a vas deferens from both testes is cut. Explain one reason why a man who does not want to have children will choose to have a vasectomy. So this is a bit loaded. Okay, let's unpack it. Firstly, they're telling us what a vasectomy is. They're telling us that this male, what a vasectomy is, right? So a vasectomy is when the vas deferens is cut. And they're saying that in this particular thing, it's cut from both testes. So the vas deferens here is cut, and on the other testes, that vas deferens is also cut. So you need to think to yourself, okay, what is this going to now cause? Okay, what does the vas deferens do? First, we need to ask ourselves, what does the vas deferens do? And what does it do? It's going to transport the sperm, right? So if it's cut here, then the sperm that's produced here and stored here, where is it going to go once it reaches here? It's not going to be able to pass, right? Because now it's cut, right? So now they want us to explain why somebody who does not want to have children will choose to have a vasectomy. So here they're not asking you what's going to happen now because it's cut or anything. You need to explain why a person who does not want to have children. So think to yourself, okay, if the person does not want to have children, that means, and the sperm is not going to be able to come out. That's the reason why they want a vasectomy, so that the sperm will not be able to be released. So let's see how we're going to put our answer. So we're first going to say there will be no sperm transported through the vas deferens in the semen. Therefore, no fertilization can take place. Okay, now this is a very interesting answer. Remember that when they ask us to explain something, they want us to explain something in a cause and effect way. Okay, so what is the cause and then what is the effect of that going to be? So as you know, as we just said, there's going to be no sperm. But that doesn't mean there's going to be no semen, because remember, it's cut here, right? We still have to remember what I told you about the accessory glands. Those are still there. So the accessory glands are still going to be able to secrete their fluid, right? Which is going to form part of the semen. So that will still be there when ejaculation occurs, but it will not have sperm, because the connection of the vas deferens here that is going to be transporting the sperm is cut, so that the sperm cannot be passed through. And then it's important to also say, you cannot just stop there. You have to say now, okay, fine, the sperm is not passing through. How is that related to somebody who doesn't want to have children? And it's because now fertilization will not take place, because fertilization cannot take place without a sperm cell. If there's an ovum and there's no sperm cell, there can be no fertilization. And if there's no fertilization, then there can be no, eventually there'll be no fetus. Okay, and no pregnancy will progress. Now we need to explain one reason why the man has had a vasectomy is capable of ejaculation. I actually just explained this one. Okay, so why is he capable of still having an ejaculation? And that is because the fluid part of the semen will still be produced, okay, by the accessory glands, or you can say by the seminal vesicle, the prostate, and the Cowper's gland. Okay, but even if you just said that the fluid part of the semen will still be produced by the accessory glands, you would get your 2 marks. Okay, so this is a different activity, okay, and it's showing us again a male. This is the side view, and this question has nothing to do with the labeling. However, I think let's go through the question and let's label the diagram so that it's also some practice for you. Okay, so we have A, which is the seminal vesicle. We have B, which is the prostate gland, and we have C over here, it just happens to be C for Cowper's gland, and then we have D. This is where learners get confused with D and E. Why is this the vas deferens? and not the urethra, because this is the vas deferens. Because you see, how you know is that you must see which is the tube, where is the tube coming from, where is it going to. That's how you know that one is the vas deferens. And this one, which is coming through the penis, that one is the urethra. Okay, then we've got the scrotum, the testes, and the epidermis. Let's look at the question. Test results show that this man has a low sperm count. Okay, that's important for us to note, that this man has a low sperm count. Explain why a doctor would advise him against wearing tight underwear. Now, let's think to ourselves, what would the tight underwear be doing? Okay, so a lot of learners want to talk about the squashing or the squishing or the constricting. Yes, essentially that is what's happening. But what is that causing? What is that squashing or constricting? What is it causing? It's causing the testes to be held closer to the body. And what did we say? What is the optimum temperature for sperm production? It's when it's lower than the body temperature. Okay, so we need to explain why they should not wear tight underwear. So the reason is that the tight underwear will keep the testes close to the body, right? The temperature of the testes will be too high and the sperm will not mature. Okay, or you can say the sperm production will be negatively affected. I just want to have a look here again at the explain question. Okay, when we are doing these TV lessons, it's not only about teaching the content, we also need to teach you how to answer questions. Okay, so in this one, remember, explain, you must always think cause and effect. You need to explain what is happening, how it's happening, why it's happening. So here we have the cause is that the testes will be closer to the body. Right? What will be the effect then? The temperature will be too high. And the second effect is that this will now cause the sperm to not mature. Always be guided by your mark allocation. Okay. So now in the past, learners lost marks here. So let's have a look at where learners lost marks. They lost marks when they answered the testes regulate the temperature and is kept at plus minus 2 degrees Celsius below body temperature. So basically they were giving the function of the scrotum and the testes, but they didn't answer the question. The question is not asking you that, you know what, and you're not supposed to answer that the temperature it's kept at 2 degrees lower. You are supposed to talk about how it will be close to the body and what will that cause. It will cause it to be hotter, for the temperature to increase. Okay, so that's all for the male reproductive system. Now we move on to the female reproductive system. Okay, it consists, okay, once again, front view, side view. So the front view, it looks like a little lampshade. Okay, if you have to look at it, to put your arms out, we have here, we have the two ovaries. Okay, it looks like a lampshade. Let's go through the diagrams first before I show you the lampshade thing. Okay, so here we've got a pair of ovaries. We have a fallopian tube leading from each ovary. Okay, so in the side view, it's very small, but we have ovary. This is this egg-shaped structure, or oval-shaped structure rather. And we have the fallopian tube. It's leading from each ovary. You can see it over here and over here. And then we have a uterus. Okay, we have a uterus, and over here you can see it's this structure. So in the female, the side view and the front view look very different. Okay, so make sure that you've exposed yourself to both of them. Then we've got a vagina or a birth canal, and we've got the vulva or external opening. Okay, and we also have a cervix. So this one's the side view is a little bit more complicated. So let's have a look at what we're looking at. Here's the ovary. As I told you, this is the uterus. And then we've got the bladder. So here we have the bladder. It sits below the uterus. Very important. You can't see it in the front view, but this one, it's very important for you to know that, because why it's important is because when you be asked to draw this, you can get confused, okay, and you can label the uterus and the bladder incorrectly. Okay, and then we've got the cervix. Okay, that's this neck region over here at the bottom. Here it's a bit more difficult to see. There's it over there. And then you've got a urethra. The urethra is going to be coming out from the bladder, okay, to the exterior. And then we are going to have on this side, we are going to have the vagina. Okay, so please don't confuse that. So what I would do when I get the side view is I would first locate where is the uterus and where is the bladder. And you must know that the bladder is below the uterus. And then you know that the urethra is the one that's going to be taking the urine from the bladder out. And then the, and then the vagina is the one that is leading from the uterus. Okay, then you've got the front view. Like I said, it's this lamp-like structure that has the ovaries or the oval structures. They've got these tubes that are called the fallopian tubes. Then we've got the womb, the uterus, and then the neck region is the cervix, and then we have the vagina and the external opening, which is the vulva. Right, let's go through all. I actually spoke to you about a lot of the functions, but let's go through it. The fallopian tube that connects the ovaries to the uterus, and they transport the ova from the ovary, and it is the site of fertilization. The ovary produces ova. I just want to put all of them up here. The ovary produces ova and secretes progesterone and estrogen. The vagina receives the penis and the semen during sexual intercourse, and it is the passage through which the baby is born. The uterus carries the embryo and the fetus during pregnancy. Okay? The endometrium is the inner lining of the uterus, and it's a place where the embryo implants and the placenta forms. The cervix is the lower narrow part of the uterus, and it stretches to allow the baby through during childbirth. Okay, so let's look at this a little bit. There's a lot of information here. Okay, the female reproductive system is a little bit more complicated. So what I want us to look at is that when we are looking at this, let's actually start from the vagina, right? So as we said, so what's essentially going to happen, you're going to learn it later, okay? But it's important for us to understand, for us to remember what the functions are. So this is the vagina. So as they say, it receives the penis and semen during sexual intercourse, okay? Now, what's going to happen here, the cervix is the neck region, okay? The sperm cells are also going to travel up here. And it's also going to stretch during birth, okay? And then the baby is going to be now coming out, right? Now, when we come to the uterus structure, we must know that it's muscular, okay? And it's going to carry the embryo and the fetus. You'll learn about those terms later on, but I want you to understand that it's in here. And then I want you to look at this structure here, this lining. This is called an endometrium. It's a uterine, or it's an inner lining, sorry. It's an inner lining. Somebody once told me, which is quite interesting, is that it's the wallpaper. The uterine wall, okay, it forms the outer part of the uterus. That is the uterine wall. And the endometrium is like the wallpaper that is on the wall. Okay, it's a lining, and like how you can tear the wallpaper away from the wall, that is how the uterine lining or the endometrium is shed during menstruation. Okay, also something we're going to know about later. But for now, I really need you to understand that we have a uterus, a uterine wall, which is the muscular layer. There are actually 3 muscular layers there. And then we have a endometrium, which is the lining. Okay, so the uterine wall is like a wall and the endometrium is like wallpaper. Okay, but you don't say that in the exam. It's only for you to understand what an endometrium is versus what a uterine wall is. Okay, and then we spoke about the ovaries. Yes, we have the ovaries here. They're going to produce the ova. They're going to secrete progesterone and estrogen, which are hormones. Okay, both of those are hormones, and they're going to cause certain things to happen in the body. And then we spoke about the fallopian tube, which connects the ovary and the uterus. It's the site of fertilization, and it's going to be transporting the ova from the ovary. Okay. Learners must be aware, this is just an exam tip, learners must be aware that examiners may ask questions based on a part of the system, which I mentioned. Learners must be familiar with the front and side views of the male and female reproductive systems. Learners confuse the endometrium and the uterine wall. Okay, so I've covered all of these. Okay, so these are the things that you need to note. Now go into a deeper understanding of the structure of the ovary, because this is very important when we talk about the production of ova and when we talk about the menstrual cycle. So let's go through it. Okay, so what are we looking at over here? We'll be looking at this lampshade, vagina, female reproductive system. Lampshade, female reproductive system. That's what you should think about when you see that structure. Okay, so we have a fallopian tube and we've got an enlarged picture of the ovary. I'm going to get back to that. Let's first have a look at what it says here. The primary female sex organs situated in the pelvic cavity on either side of the uterus. That's what the ovary is. They are the primary female sex organs and they are situated in the pelvic cavity on either side of the uterus. So there are two, the same way that there are two testes in the male. And each ovary is surrounded by a layer of germinal epithelium, which is diploid. That divides to produce the haploid ova by the process of oogenesis. Okay, oogenesis, we're going to look at it now. And what is the function of the ovary? They produce and release the ova, and they produce the female hormones and estrogen and progesterone, which we just spoke about. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Yeah, so the ovary is going to have, there are blood vessels coming into the ovary. Okay, so those blood vessels are going to be supplying the ovary with blood. Okay, and then we are going to have primary follicles here. So all of these, there we have a whole lot of primary follicles, and they are going to be containing mature ovum, right? Mature ova. Then we have secondary follicles that are going to develop. That's going to contain the immature ovum. Okay, so we're going to have an ovum in there, and then we're going to have a Graafian follicle that's going to develop. They're going to have the structure developing that's going to contain the mature ovum, and then the ovum is going to be released at some point. Okay, and then we're going to have other structures that are formed, which are called the corpus luteum. Okay, but this we are going to do later when we do the menstrual cycle. I just wanted you to see that this is what an ovary looks like on the inside, and these are the structures that you can start familiarizing yourself with, because we're going to look at it when we do the menstrual cycle. Right, let's go through the different parts, and then we're going to take a short break. Identify part A and C. So part A, okay, let's first label the diagram before we do any of that. Okay, so we have part A is the fallopian tube. B, the ovary. C, now remember we said it's a neck-like structure, so it is the cervix. And we have D, which is the vagina, and just out of interest, this part would be the vulva, and then this is the uterus. Easy enough, right? So we've labeled them so we can answer the questions. We have there A and C. Were we correct? Yes, we were. Give the letter only of the part where each of the following takes place. Okay. Where does meiosis take place and where does fertilization take place? So remember we said in males it takes place in the testes, and in females it is the ovary. So the ovary is B. Grade 12, they asked us for the letter. Don't go and think, okay, you know, I'm super clever. I know that that letter is actually the ovary, so I'm going to write ovary. You will get 0. You will get 0. They asked you for the letter. If they ask you for the letter, you give the letter. If they ask you to name, you give the name, which will be ovary. If they ask for the letter and the name, then you must say B, ovary. Okay, then you're going to get 2 marks. Right, but you need to answer the question. Then give the letter of the part where fertilization takes place, and that is at A in the fallopian tube. You need to know that the fallopian tube is the site of fertilization. Say 2 functions of part E. 2 functions of part E. So let's go back to part E, that is the uterus. Okay, so we spoke about that. We spoke about the fact that it has 2 functions. Okay, do you remember what they were? Firstly, they're responsible for the production of the protection, of the embryo. So the embryo is going to develop in there, so it's going to protect it, and it's from implantation to birth. And it also provides a space for the developing fetus, because that fetus is going to grow inside that uterus. So it provides space and protection. It provides protection for the developing embryo, and it also provides space for the developing fetus. What is the function of the nutrient-rich fluid that enables sperm to reach part A? Right, so what is the function of the nutrient-rich fluid? Okay, what is the function of that fluid? So they want to know, from the accessory glands, they have this fluid. What is the function of that nutrient-rich fluid that enables the sperm to, okay, so the sperm has to move there. It has to propel itself. Okay, so what is going to do that? It's going to give the sperm energy. Remember we spoke about that? The fluid gives the sperm energy. Oopsie. Yeah, that's the main thing. It's going to give it energy because it needs to give it energy for it to move and propel itself. Okay, just one more activity before we take a quick break. Activity 3, because this now is the same thing that we were doing, okay? Just to reinforce again, let's label this diagram. Now, A, once again, is the fallopian tube. B is now this one. Let's talk about this one before we get to B and D. A is the fallopian tube, C is the vagina, and B and C. So D here, D is pointing to the uterus. Remember I told you it is the wall, the uterus, and then B is the endometrium because it's showing us here, it's the lining, okay? It's like that wallpaper, which is the endometrium. So we identify part B, it's the endometrium. If you said uterus, it is wrong. If you said uterine wall, it is wrong. It is the endometrium. Name the process that takes place in part A that leads to zygote formation. So part A is the fallopian tube, and what process takes place? Now remember I told you that at the beginning of the lesson, in the cycle, it's called fertilization. Okay, it takes place it leads to the zygote formation, and then describe the process named. So that's the process of fertilization. I know you haven't done it yet, but I did explain it to you today. It is the nucleus of the sperm. It's when the nucleus of the sperm fuses with the nucleus of the ovum. Describe how the secretion of the prostate gland provides protection for the sperm from the conditions in part C. Oh, this one's also another loaded one. Firstly, they're asking us to describe. They want to describe how the secretion of the prostate gland provides protection of sperm from the conditions in part C. Okay, so as we just said recently, it's not only the prostate gland, but in this instance, they are talking about the prostate gland. So you need to talk about the word protection. There is giving you a clue that you must look at alkalinity. Because they told us about protection, you must look at the alkalinity. So the secretion is alkaline, which neutralizes the acidic conditions of the vagina. It is alkaline, which neutralizes the acidic conditions of the vagina. So remember I told you, it is not only the prostate gland, it's all of the accessory glands together. They are ultimately responsible for the nourishment and the secreting a fluid that's alkaline, and then we talk about the mucus. Okay, let's take a quick 5-minute break. Welcome back, grade 12 learners. Let's continue with our human reproduction lesson. But before we do that, let's just quickly recap on what we did this afternoon. Right, so we spoke about human reproduction, and that it's 41 marks of paper 1 in your preparatory examination, as well as the end of the year final examination. And then we spoke about the male reproductive system and the female reproductive system and all the different parts and structures that you need to know, as well as the functions. And a quick tip that I want to talk, and we did some questions as well, okay, and I hope you did well in those questions. Please remember that there's also a worksheet. Please ask your teachers to give the worksheet to you so that you can actually go through the questions that we have done here. And you can actually, if you're able to have the worksheet right in front of you now, that's also excellent, and you can go through the questions when I'm referring to them. Okay, another thing I wanted to mention about the male and female reproductive system is that being able to label the diagrams are very important. So when you are practicing, you should either draw the different structures, or you can get blank diagrams that are available at the back of your Mind the Gap study guide. It's a DBE study guide. At the back, it's green and white. At the back there are blank diagrams. You can use them to label all the structures, and you can also use them to annotate. So annotate means to put little descriptions next to the labels, okay? And you can annotate the functions. Okay, you can put the functions over there so that you have the structure and the function of the different parts. So please make sure that you have those in your book or when you are studying. Right, now we move on to puberty. It's a time of life when a person becomes sexually mature. Physical changes occur between ages 10 and 14 in girls and ages 12 and 16 in boys. It begins when the hypothalamus in the brain starts to release a hormone which is called gonadotropin releasing hormone. Okay, so so at age 10 or 11 or 12 it differs. Okay, as you can see, there's a range there. The hypothalamus in the brain is going to start releasing a hormone, and that's going to trigger the onset of puberty. So it happens in males and females. Okay, here we have the two things. We're comparing what happens in the males and the females. Oh, sorry about this heading. It's supposed to be puberty and not puberty in males. Okay, so here we have, this one is the male, okay, and this one is the female. So we're looking at them separately. Now, on the left-hand side, it starts with, as we said, the gonadotropin releasing hormone. It stimulates another part of the brain, which is called the pituitary gland, to secrete two hormones. It's FSH and luteinizing hormone. So this FSH is going to stimulate the testes to produce sperm, and the LH is going to stimulate the testes to produce testosterone. Okay, so FSH stands for follicle stimulating hormone. So it's going to cause the testes to produce sperm. And LH stands for luteinizing hormone, which is going to stimulate the testes to produce testosterone. Okay, and as you can see over here, we'll look at it just now, but there are some physical changes that occur with the boys between age 9 and age 19. Okay, you can see in this one, they're showing you that we have some facial hair. Okay, then here we've got in females, it's also the anterior pituitary gland is going to also secrete FSH and LH, but in females the FSH is going to stimulate the follicle of the ovary to develop estrogen, which is a hormone, and luteinizing hormone is going to stimulate the corpus luteum in the ovary to secrete progesterone. Okay, so that is basically what is going to happen at the onset of puberty. And you can see from age 7 to age 19 here with the females, now they are showing us that we have armpit, or we have underarm hair. Okay, so here's also some secondary sexual, and those are what I was referring to now, are secondary sexual characteristics. So what happens in puberty in males? So with regards to the height, they get taller. The face, they may get some pimples. The penis and testicles get bigger. The voice usually deepens. You start getting sweat in the armpits, and the hair grows on the face, the arms, the legs, the chest, the armpit, and also between your legs. Okay? And in females, what happens in the face, they may also get pimples. The armpits are also going to become more sweaty. you're going to get taller, the breasts are going to start growing, and the hair is also going to grow in the armpits, on the legs, and also between the legs. And then something else that females go through that males don't is called menstruation. That is when your period begins. Okay, but we are life science learners, so we call it menstruation. You're going to learn about it when we learn about the menstrual cycle. Okay, so you do need to know those. Okay, you need to know what the sexual characteristics are, right? And now we move on to gametogenesis. Right, let's unpack this a little bit. Now let's remind ourselves, where are we? You know about meiosis. You know that meiosis is cell division. You know that it's going to halve the number, the diploid number, to a haploid, and you know that it's going to be the formation of gametes. Okay, but now what you don't know is the process of how ovaries are formed and how sperm cells are formed. And this collectively is called gametogenesis. It's the production of gametes through meiosis. Okay, and it's called in spermatogenesis in males, and it's called oogenesis in females. Okay, it's a lovely picture here of an ovum. Okay, so now the first one we're going to look at is oogenesis. Let's have a closer look at oogenesis. So this is the process of oogenesis. In females, the process of gametogenesis is called oogenesis. Very important that you understand that. Gametogenesis are the both of them together. Collectively, it is called gametogenesis. Below that heading, like a subheading, is that you get oogenesis, which occurs in females, and spermatogenesis, which occurs in males. Okay, so let's read, before we look at the picture, let's read what it says. What is, this is according to the examination guideline. Grade 12, I want you to take note. When it comes to oogenesis and spermatogenesis, you need to know this bullet form description straight from the examination guideline. So it tells us that we have diploid cells in the ovary which undergo mitosis to form numerous follicles. On the onset of puberty and under the influence of FSH, one cell inside a follicle enlarges and undergoes meiosis. Of the 4 cells that are produced, remember we said at the end of meiosis 4 cells are produced, only one survives to form a mature haploid ovum, and this occurs in a monthly cycle. Okay, so every month this is what's going to happen. Okay, so what I want us to understand here, let's unpack this before we look at the diagram. So what I want us to understand here is before we get to the onset of puberty, so what's happening in a female before we get to puberty is that every female in the ovaries have these diploid cells. Remember we spoke about them, the diploid cells in the germinal epithelium. They are going to undergo mitosis. So they're going to start making more and more, cell division is going to occur, more and more follicles are going to be produced by a process called mitosis. And then all of these numerous follicles are going to be sitting and waiting there for puberty. And at the onset of puberty, now remember we said that the pituitary gland is now going to release FSH. What does that FSH do? It's going to cause one of those cells every month. It's going to cause one of those cells to enlarge and undergo meiosis. So mitosis is to form the numerous follicles. And once puberty hits and you're going to start making ova, only one of those follicles are going to enlarge and undergo meiosis. And why is it going to undergo meiosis? Because that one cell must become 4 cells. But out of that 4 cells that are going to be formed at the end, only one survives to form a mature haploid ovum, and occurs in a monthly cycle. Now let's look at the picture. Okay, don't worry about the words that I have on the side there. I want us to understand that this is the diploid. This is the cell they're talking about. One of these follicles. When it comes to under the fluids, one cell. This is the one cell they're talking about. Okay, and it's going to undergo meiosis. So the first meiotic division is going to occur. Remember, we have 2 meiotic divisions. So we're going to have the first meiotic division and the second meiotic division. Okay, 12, this meiosis is not a different meiosis of what we learned last time, now, right? Sometimes when we tell learners now meiosis is occurring, they forget meiosis has 2 divisions. Meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. So the first meiotic division is going to occur here, then the second meiotic division is going to occur, and then as you can see, we're going to have these three are polar bodies. They're going to degenerate and fall away, and only one is going to develop into a mature ovum. Okay, that's the reason why females only produce one ovum a month, and only one ovum is released from the ovary every month. Now we go to spermatogenesis. Spermatogenesis, like I told you, in males, the process of gametogenesis is called spermatogenesis. So here you can see a little sperm cell propelling itself. Okay, the tail is busy propelling so that the sperm can move. Right, so from the examination, once again, I'm putting an asterisk there to remind you the examination guideline. That's very important. Under the influence of testosterone, diploid cells in the seminiferous tubules of the testes undergo meiosis to form haploid sperm cells. Now, this one, it happens only from puberty. So remember we said at puberty, testosterone is going to be produced from the testes, right? We spoke about that because the luteinizing hormone is going to cause the testosterone to be produced. And that is going to cause the diploid cells of the seminiferous tubules. Now, what is that, ma'am? Inside the testes, there are tubes. There are like these folded tubes that are called seminiferous tubules, okay? There are a whole lot of folded tubes that are inside those testes, and they are lined with germinal epithelium, okay? You just need to know them as diploid cells. And those diploid cells are in the seminiferous tubules, and they're also going to undergo meiosis, and they're going to form haploid sperms. So here we've got the one, okay, here we've got the diploid one that I was talking about. We've got mitosis occur so that we're going to have more. We're going to have more of these diploid cells, but then we're going to have meiosis occurring so that we can halve the number, and then each one of those cells are going to divide into another two, and these are going to be our sperm cells. They are spermatids first, and then they're going to further develop into your mature sperm cells, which are sitting over here. Okay, so similar to what happens in oogenesis, but also different. Okay, there are differences between spermatogenesis and oogenesis. Okay, so there's still two meiotic divisions that occur and everything. It's just that in males, it happens at the onset of puberty because of testosterone, and in females, it's we have it. The diploid cells are going to undergo mitosis before puberty to form numerous cells, and then after puberty, every month, only one cell. It also only happens every month, whereas in males, the spermatogenesis is happening often. Okay, not only every month. Okay, now we're going to go to the structure of the sperm cell. So now we have spoken about how the sperm cells are formed. We spoke about how the ova are formed. And now we actually have to go through the structures of them. Right, as you know, life sciences, we love structures, okay, and functions. So you need to know how to label this. You need to know the different structures as well as the functions. So this is the structure of a sperm cell. And let's start here at the acrosome. I like to start here at the front. This is an acrosome. It contains enzymes that dissolve the ovum's membrane. Before we get to the acrosome, sorry, I forgot something. The sperm cell is divided into three parts: the head, the midpiece, and the tail. So let's go to the head. The head has an acrosome which has enzymes to dissolve the ovum's membrane. Because remember I told you the sperm and the ovum have to come into contact, right? The nuclei have to fuse. So how is it going to fuse? Because the ovum, you're going to see the structure of an ovum. The sperm cell has to penetrate that ovum. So it has, the acrosome is going to have enzymes that is going to dissolve the membrane so that the head can enter the ovum. Then we've got the nucleus. Okay, this is the nucleus here, and that makes up the head region. Then we've got the middle piece. It's made up of numerous mitochondria, very important, and they provide energy for locomotion. Yes, they have mitochondria. You know from grade 11, what is the from grade 10, you know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. And in grade 11, you learn about cellular respiration, and you also learn about the importance of the mitochondria. So here also it has the same function of providing energy, but in this instance it's going to provide the energy for the sperm to move. And then we've got the long tail. Important that you know that it's a long tail, and it enables the sperm to swim up the fallopian tube. Okay, so it allows the ovum, the sperm cell to swim. Okay, now let's look at the head again. The head is mainly made up of the nucleus containing 22 autosomes and either an X or a Y. Very, very important. So remember, because I'm saying remember, and I'm noting this because learners don't realize. Remember what we are looking at here. It's a sperm cell. What did we say it comes from? Meiosis produces the gamete. The gamete is the sperm cell in male. Okay, so it has a nucleus. And in that nucleus, we have 23 chromosomes. Remember. Now, what do you remember about gametes as well from meiosis? Is that we also know that there are 22 autosomes, okay, in a gamete. In a diploid cell, there are going to be 44 autosomes. But now we are looking at, this is in a somatic cell. Okay, 44 autosomes. Autosomes, oh wow. Sorry, I can't spell all of a sudden. Right, and then we have 22 autosomes. Now, remember that we said there are 23 chromosomes in total. So in a diploid one, going back to a somatic cell, we have 44 autosomes and 2 gonosomes. Those 2 gonosomes are our sex chromosomes. Okay, and in males, remember it's XY, and in females it's XX. Okay, so what they're saying over here is that when it's a male, when it's a haploid cell, we are going to have 22 autosomes, and we need to have 1 gonosome, and that can be either an X or a Y because it's a male. Okay, right, that's what I wanted to explain there. Now we move to the structure of the ovum. Here we have, let's start at the middle. We have a nucleus. Then we have surrounding the nucleus, we have cytoplasm. Surrounding that, we have a layer of jelly, okay, a jelly layer. And then we also have follicle cells surrounding that. What does the jelly layer do? It provides protection for the early developmental stages of the fertilized ovum. So it provides the protection, and the cytoplasm nourishes the ovum. And now this nucleus, remember the ovum is also a haploid cell. So it also has 23 chromosomes. This one is going to have 22 autosomes, and it's only going to have 1 X gonosome. Why? Because a female only has 2 X gonosomes. So in a haploid condition, in the ovum, it will have 1 X chromosome. Do you get that? Good. Very important for us to understand that, because it's also going to make us understand genetics better. Right, now we go to the drawing skill. Before we go into this, I want to talk to you a little bit about life sciences skills. Okay, it's very important that we understand or we practice the life science skills. You must be able to draw, okay, different draw diagrams. For life sciences in human reproduction, they like to ask the drawing of the ovum, the drawing of the sperm cell. Okay, those could be 2 drawings that they could ask, but they really could ask anything. They could maybe ask you to draw a Graafian follicle, like, I don't know, right? But you must be able to practice the drawings. So drawing is this one skill that you need to know. You need to know how to draw graphs. Okay, draw and interpret graphs, and the graphs you need to know are the bar graph, the histogram, the pie chart, and the line graph. Okay, you need to know them. Then you need to know calculations, simple calculations. For life science learners, we call them simple calculations, but you'll be surprised that many of you find it difficult. You need to know percentage increase. percentage decrease, how to work out an average, how to work out a percentage, how to work with ratios. Those are the kind of basic calculations that we expect life science learners to know. Then you must be able to read from micrographs, or look at micrographs and be able to see what is going on there. You also are meant to do scientific investigations. Okay, you need to do scientific investigations. You need to be able to answer questions on scientific investigations, where they give you an aim, they give you a method, they give you the results, they give you tables, they ask you to draw graphs, and they ask you different questions. Okay, so that is something else you need to know. And then a new one that I think we are trying to emphasize at the moment are case studies or extracts. That's when they give you a portion to read, and then you need to answer questions on that, or you need to apply the information from there. You need to use that information and apply yourself in order to answer the question. Okay, so everything I mentioned now are all of the things you're going to see in your final exam. Okay, so this, you need to start preparing yourself for every topic. When you are doing some past paper questions or your teacher is giving you things, make sure that every topic has some sort of practice on these skills. So today I'm going to teach you the drawing skill. This is the practice question. Draw a labeled diagram. Draw a labeled diagram to show the structure of the sperm cell. Okay? So what you need to do is, it must be no bigger than half a page. And you draw it in pencil. You must bring a pencil to the exam. You draw it in pencil. You must always have a heading. So in this instance, it's a sperm cell. They told you it's a sperm cell. You need to draw a sperm cell. You put the heading. Then you draw it. Okay? It must have a head, a midpiece, and a long tail. Then you draw everything, and then when you're labeling, you use a ruler and a pen. A pencil you can use for the lines, and or a pencil or a pen, and then you have acrosome, nucleus. You label everything with a pen, and you try to put as far as possible all of your labels on the one side. Okay, so this is just to make it neat. Okay, can you see how beautiful and neat this diagram is? You'll be shocked and amazed to see the kind of things that we can see sometimes, okay, with how the learners draw. So please practice this one. It's not a difficult one. I also added the mark allocation here to show you how strict we are when we actually mark. Okay, number one, you get a mark for the heading. So even if you draw a sperm cell here and you got the drawing incorrect, like maybe something is not right with the drawing, you will still get a mark for that heading. So even if you're not sure how to draw it and you're feeling nervous, always put the heading. Then you're going to get a mark for any two correct labels, and then you're going to get a mark for the correct drawing. In this one, they are saying that it must have a head, a midpiece, and a tail, but all of this must be in appropriate proportions. So in other words, we need to have a smaller head. We have to have a head. We have to have a smaller neck region, or the narrower neck region, and a long tail. That's why I said I'm emphasizing that long tail. Okay, so we cannot have this big head and this big neck region, and then we have a small little tail. Okay, then you're not going to get the mark. Right, so it must be in proportion. It must look like a sperm cell. Then we go to the diagram of the ovum. In this one, we just want those three layers: the jelly layer, the cytoplasm, and the nucleus. The jelly layer, the cytoplasm, and the nucleus. So you just draw three circles. You draw the nucleus, surrounding it is the cytoplasm, and surrounding that is the jelly layer. Please note that we don't really shade in our diagrams. However, when we're doing meiosis, the shading is allowed, because that's how you're going to show the chromosomes, okay, because of with the shading. In this instance also, I think it wouldn't be a train smash for you to circle the nucleus, okay, but we don't color in, please. Even in graphs, we don't color in our graphs. I know it looks nice and looks pretty and everything, but we don't color them in, okay? So then we've got here, the criteria was only 3 marks. In this one, you didn't have to have a heading, but always put the heading, because you never know. Correct diagram, it must be an ovum, and then any 2 labels. Here are some tips. Include a caption. Be drawn in pencil and labeled in pen. Label lines must not cross, and they must be large and fill half a page. Your diagram must be large and fill half a page. Okay, so that is the drawing skill. Please make sure. If I can think about what you've done so far at school, DNA, you must be able to draw a nucleotide, you must be able to draw a portion of DNA, something to represent DNA, RNA. For genetics, you need to know how to draw a chromosome, you need to know how to draw every phase of meiosis. You also need to be able to draw every phase of meiosis and also apply it to what's been given to you. They might not ask you to just randomly draw a phase of meiosis. Okay, they could be asking you to draw a specific page. You need to look at what is the context of that question when you are drawing, right? And then in human reproduction, they can ask you to draw the ovum and the sperm cell. Those are the two common ones that they can ask you to draw. Okay. Right, now we have a few activities. Right, the diagram below represents a sperm cell. So here we have an acrosome, we can see a nucleus. This one's actually giving us all the different parts. I'm glad for that, because this is also showing you that in the nucleus we're going to have the DNA. You can see that over there. It's a lovely diagram. Now we need to answer the questions. State how the following structures are suited to assist the sperm cell to perform its function. So it's already highlighted for keywords for you today. There. Suited and to perform its function. So the mitochondria. How is the mitochondria suited for its function? So now you have to ask yourself, what is the function? It's to provide energy, right? So how is it suited for its function? It's because they increase the surface area for cellular respiration to enable the movement of the sperm. Okay, so there are many of them. There are many mitochondria, okay, which is now going to increase the surface area, more cellular respiration will occur, or you can say to provide more energy. Okay, and what is that going to do? It's going to enable the movement of the sperm cell. So when we're talking about suited for its function, it's the mitochondria. Yes, it provides energy, right? But how is it going to assist the sperm for its function? And what is the function of the sperm? It is to move, right? So there has to be energy to provide the movement, okay, of the sperm cell. And then we've got the acrosome. What does this have? It contains enzymes. Remember I told you that? It contains enzymes to dissolve the outer membrane of the ovum for the sperm cell nucleus to enter the ovum for fertilization. Okay, so you're going to see it when we are doing it, but I just want to show you quickly. So here we have the nucleus, okay, and we've got the cytoplasm, and we've got a jelly layer, and we've got the outer barrier, right? The sperm cell is going to be coming here. There's its nucleus. Here's the neck, and here's the tail. Okay, so what it's going to do, it's going to come here, it's going to come into contact, and it's got an acrosome here in the front. Right, so when that acrosome is going to come into contact here, it's going to dissolve this wall. It's going to cause this opening so that this can enter, and only the head is going to enter. Only the head is going to enter, and then these two nuclei are going to fuse. The neck and the tail region falls away. Only the head is going to penetrate. Because of those enzymes, it's going to dissolve the outer. The head is going to penetrate, enter, and then the two nuclei are going to fuse. Sperm cells and ova are produced by spermatogenesis, gametogenesis. Okay, sorry, there's a spelling error there. It's supposed to be gametogenesis. We'll fix that. This happens when diploid cells undergo meiosis to produce haploid cells. Tabulate two differences between gametogenesis in males and females not mentioned in the text above. So they're saying that here it happens in females and in males, okay? And it happens when diploid cells undergo meiosis. Yes, that happens in both of them. Okay, so that's a similarity. But now they want to know about the differences. So we're going to tabulate them quickly. Right, gametogenesis in males, it's called spermatogenesis. In females, it's called oogenesis. In gametogenesis, remember I told you it's stimulated by testosterone, and in females, it is stimulated by FSH. In males, it takes place in the testes, in the seminiferous tubules, and gametogenesis, and in females, it takes place in the ovaries. In males, they result in 4 sperm cells, and in females, 1 ovum. In males, it starts at puberty, and in females, it starts before puberty. This is a very lovely diagram for you to go through, for you to understand the differences between the two. Okay. Grade 12, when they ask you to tabulate, this is just another teaching tool. When they ask you to tabulate, they want you to draw a table. So you're going to have a line down the center, and you're going to have 2 columns. Okay, this is column number 1. This is column number 2. You're going to have column headings. Once you've drawn that, you're getting a mark for table. Also, get into the habit of having a caption for your table. You never know when they're going to want a mark for that. Okay, so always write a caption for your table. So this caption is going to be table representing the difference between gametogenesis in males and females. Then, when they ask you for 2, they mean they want 2 differences. They're only going to mark the first 2. So if you said called spermatogenesis, and then you said stimulate, then you said something incorrect. First you said this one first, then you said this one incorrect, right? Then you have this one again that is correct. You will still only get the first mark. You will still only get the first row correct. You'll only get that one, because we're only going to mark the first 2. Okay, because it asked you for 2. When you are comparing things, you need to compare the same things. So what I like to do is I like to number them. So if I'm numbering number 1, then I put number 1 on the other side. So I'm telling myself that if I'm talking about what is it called on the one side, then on the other side, I also need to talk about what it is called. Okay. Example. The first one, we are saying point number 1 is that it's called spermatogenesis in males. And in females, it is called oogenesis. So 1 and 1 go together. But if you had said it's called spermatogenesis on one side, and on the other side you say stimulated by FSH, those things are not talking to each other. So you are not tabulating differences. You are just tabulating things. Then you will lose marks. Okay, so please make sure. And it's any 2 times 2, because how it is that, so even if you got this mark called spermatogenesis, and if you wrote stimulated by FSH here, even though it is true, you will get it wrong. Are you with me? So you must be comparing like things. I like to say you have to compare apples with apples. Okay. Okay, now we have another question. The diagram below shows the structure of a sperm cell. Once again, we have a sperm cell over here. Let's label the parts. Okay, we have A, it's the nucleus, B, the mitochondria, C, the tail, and D, the acrosome. So now they're asking us to name the organelles found in large numbers in part B. So part B is the midsection, so that is the mitochondria. And in part D, we have the acrosome. And then they're asking us to name the part of the testes where spermatogenesis takes place. So now you know that it's the testes, but they want to know specifically where in the testes, and it is the seminiferous tubules. Then we go to 3.3a on this side. Name the role of the following parts during fertilization. So what is the part of A? So first you need to ask yourself, what is A? A is the nucleus. What is the role? It fuses with the nucleus of the ovum to form the zygote. It carries genetic material, DNA and chromosomes, which is transferred to the offspring, and it contains haploid number of chromosomes, which contributes to the formation of the diploid cell. So this one, it's the mark allocation would have given you an indication of how much they wanted to know, but the key word here is the role. You need to explain the role of it. Is like another word of saying, like, what is its place? And so it's not just about the fact that it fuses with the nucleus. You needed to be able to say more to get 2 marks. So you had to say it fuses with the nucleus to form the zygote. That's what its purpose or role, that's what its place is. Okay, and it carries genetic material, which is then going to be transferred to offspring. Can you see why that's a full answer? You would only get 1 mark if you just said it fuses with the nucleus of the ovum. Okay, and yeah, then name the role of the following parts during fertilization. Again, now we're talking about part D. So part D is the acrosome. It contains enzymes that digest the outer membrane of the ovum. Okay, so it's not just it contains the enzymes. What is its role? It contains the enzymes, and what do those enzymes do? They digest the outer membrane of the ovum. Describe the functional relationship between the organelles in part B and structure C during reproduction. So we have part B and C. Okay, part B is the neck to remind ourselves, and part C is the tail. So what is the functional relationship between these two organelles? Right. So organelle B is going to release the energy, and that is going to enable the movement of part C. Simple. That is the relationship between the two. The one provides the energy and the other for the other one to move. Okay, so they can't do without each other. Or well, the part C cannot do without part B, because without part B, C will not be able to move. Okay. On average, a sperm moves at a speed of 5 millimeters per minute inside the female reproductive system, and it takes approximately 45 minutes for the sperm to reach the ovum for fertilization. So it takes 5 millimeters per minute, and it takes 45 minutes for it to reach there. Oh, hectic, eh? So calculate the distance in millimeters that a sperm needs to move to reach the ovum. Okay, so what distance does it have to go? How do you work it out? You are going to say the 5 millimeters per minute times it by 45 minutes, and you're going to get to 225 millimeters. That's the distance that it will have to travel. Because it's saying that in 5 minutes, it can go in 1 minute, there are 45 minutes. And in 1 minute is equal to 45 minutes. Okay, 1 millimeter per minute, sorry. 1 millimeter per minute is equal to 45 minutes. So 5 of those is going to be how much? 225. Right, then we're moving on to our last question. The diagram below shows the structure of a normal and an abnormal sperm. The diagrams are drawn to scale. Very important. This point is very important. You see, they're telling us that there's a normal and an abnormal sperm. They're not telling us which one is normal. They're not telling us which one is abnormal. But they're telling us that it's drawn to scale. So they want us to see that the differences that you are seeing here is really, they are in scale compared to each other. Right, so that is going to give you an indication of which one is abnormal and which one is normal. So now they're asking us to explain 2 reasons why sperm 1 is structurally better suited for fertilization than sperm 2. So they're not asking us which one is abnormal and which one is normal. What are they asking you? They're asking you, number 1, to explain. They're asking you 2 reasons why the sperm 1 is structurally better suited for fertilization than sperm 2, and wanting you to compare the suitability. So let's look at number 2. What does number 1 have that number 2 does not have? Number 1 has an acrosome, number 2 does not. Right? Number 1 has a very long tail, and number 2 has a shorter tail. And something else I'm also looking is the shape of the head. In sperm 2, the shape of the head is very round compared to sperm 1, where it's got this torpedo-shaped head. Okay? So those are some of the differences. Now we are just observing. We are noticing that these are the 3 differences that we see. But now we need to talk about why sperm 1 is better. So firstly, you need to say that it has a torpedo-shaped head, an oval or torpedo-shaped head. That is the structure. And what is the function? It will facilitate faster movement. So you cannot only mention, to get 2 marks, you cannot only mention that, because you know that a normal cell, a normal sperm cell, it looks like the first diagram, okay? But you cannot just mention those structures that you know this is what a normal sperm must look like. You also need to explain why, because they want to know why is it better suited. So you need to say it's got the torpedo-shaped head, and what does that enable it to do? It will facilitate faster movement because of the streamlined shape, okay? Then the other thing you could say was that the presence of the acrosome, that acrosome that's there, enables the nucleus or the head to enter the ovum. Okay, so yes, it's got an acrosome, but what's important about it? It enables the nucleus to enter the ovum. That is the structure and the function. And then lastly, it's got a longer tail, ensuring faster movement. Okay. So learners answered this question not very well because a lot of them just wanted to say the presence of the acrosome or the longer tail, but they did not answer the question for the explain part. So they mentioned these things, or some of them they just said that it will be able to move faster, you know, or it will, yeah, faster. So for these ones, the faster movement was because of the long tail, but also because of the torpedo-shaped head. Okay, so however you explained it, they wanted two, so you needed to say two structures with two functions, and that's how you got the 4 marks. Right, so grade 12, our next lesson is going to be on the 13th of March, okay, that's next week Thursday, and it's going to be from 2 to 3:30, and this is going to be human reproduction part 2. So if you're looking at this lesson and you're realizing, whoops, ma'am didn't go through everything in this topic, then don't stress, because we're definitely going to be back. We'll be back next week Thursday with the lesson, and that's where we are going to teach you further. We'll recap a little bit about what we did today, and then we will dive right into the menstrual cycle, and then we'll do fertilization and implantation, and then finally the gestation part. All right, so thank you very much, grade 12s, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon until we see you again. See you next time.